How you guys doing? You're more than halfway through. Thank you for hanging in there. You are sitting down, and I am so glad you're sitting down right now to listen. I'm so glad you're here. And I want to talk about another way that couches are toxic. What happens if you sit around too long? What? Pooling the blood. What happens if you don't do anything at all? If you make it long enough in life, as Josh let you know, you will get a certain number of mutations. Sitting around is going to add up to a lot of dangerous things, both in your body and in your mutation line, in your cell line. So here I come. I am a PhD student in public health genetics, and my job is increasingly becoming trying to change your mind. I'm going to try to change your mind about something specific as we head into this presentation. But first I had to change my own mind. I'm going into grad school, like most of us have done at some point. You head into school, and like a scientist, you form a hypothesis. What do I want to do? What do I want to get out of the school experience? What do I want to do afterward? So this is me. You know, I'm a Seattleite, like the rest of us here. I like to hike. Any excuse to get off the computer. But I'm comparing this analogy. This is my hike I'm going to take you through. I'm comparing this analogy, though, to hiking through grad school, trying to figure out what matters. So I'm wandering around. What is it that I really want to do out here? And I find something. Oh, this is pretty. This is really cool. I like this specific little thing in grad school. And for me, that started off being genetics, because I'd run into Punnett squares when I was young, and that was just amazing to me that you can use statistics and probability to figure out what happens to you in life later on. So I was stuck on that. And then I got lured over into photography. These are some of my photos up here. And photography started me doing journalism, and that got me in a big mess. And I was thinking, now what? I'm a person. People would ask, you take pictures of genes? Like, no, I don't take pictures of genes. I'm terribly obsessed with genetics, and I'm also becoming terribly obsessed with communicating with people and telling people's stories. So I had the problem of, how do I tie all these things together? I don't really know. At first, I decided to, look at just one area. Okay, health. Maybe it's health stories. I'll focus on that. And I went and worked for Johnson & Johnson, which has this program called Health Media. And what we do is use technology, not quite texting yet, we were trying to get there, but we were using the internet to make up a health coach for you, essentially. You here, if you worked for a company that had insurance carried through Johnson & Johnson or affiliated or bought this from us, you would fill out a big questionnaire, huge. And after you're done with that, I would be the little elf behind your computer sticking all these words together to try and tell you what you might want to do next. You don't want to sit here in this chair anymore. You want to go outside and hike. Well, it's raining. Yeah, I know, but it's going to be better for you overall. So that was my job, trying to figure out who you were by looking at answers to questions you made in questionnaires and coding them so that this computer could fit all your answers together and give you what looked like, hopefully, a coherent, convincing guide. This was fun for me, and we had some good results, but this didn't seem quite right to me. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I realized it's not the things, those little spiky plants, those little pieces of human knowledge that I care about, as much as I care about the humans themselves. And I wanted to focus on them. And so now I've got humans, I've got genes, I've got communication, and I've got this feeling that, like with texting, we're getting good at sending each other all kinds of messages all the time. But it basically comes down to how we talk to each other. How do we change each other's mind? Who convinces each other of different messages, and why? Some people are going to be opposed to what you think. I care about those people, the angry people. I want to find out who thinks differently than me and wants to get up in my face and talk about it. That's interesting. I care about groups of people who gather together. This is NWABR. This is a community conversation where people talk about science and medical stuff. People from all over the community. We have machinists. We have baristas. We have scientists. I care about the scientists themselves. Here are some weather people. Not quite cosmologists, but weather people nonetheless. And I care about what they think and about their special knowledge. But I also care about the people who help us find this knowledge. This is Lane, a participant who is getting malaria on purpose. He just got bit by mosquitoes that are going to give him malaria. He's in a trial, and he's trying to help scientists at Seattle Biomed, I just did a story about this, figure out how to develop a malaria vaccine. So we have all these different kinds of people. They all have different interests and needs. They all kind of want to talk to each other, but we're not going to be able to get them on the same room. We can't send them all text messages. What do? We realize that it's not just individuals in the room, it's some other organizations. The project I am working on has specifically come down to cancer, and you remember from Josh's presentation, we may, if we sit around long enough, eventually all get it because those mutations are going on constantly, and we're going to get a dangerous mutation at some point statistically. So all of us are future cancer patients, not to be all glum, I'm sorry, but we could very possibly be future cancer patients. And that makes us invested in doing research that helps defeat cancer. So this became the mission of the project I'm working with. I'm working with NWABR, Fred Hutch, University of Washington to try and figure out ways to convince people that they want to support cancer research. And the way we're asking people to do that is to please give us a chunk of your body. Does that sound appealing right off the bat? I'm not thinking so, but there's a trick. We are trying to figure out the best time to ask. We do want healthy tissue. We also want unhealthy tissue. So if you did get cancer, and I really hope no one does here, I've had relatives die of cancer, and it is awful. What we plan, though, is to do what already happens, which is you get cancer, you go in for surgery. The doctor will remove the surgery, and you have a chance somewhere in that procedure, although it's vaguely defined for a lot of different places, to donate that sample, that cancerous leftover tissue after it's taken out of you, to researchers like Josh, who need it to figure out how to defeat cancer. Trick is, you kind of need to know this is happening, and we as people asking, need your permission. So we want you on board, and we want you to be aware of what has happened in the past and what we think the future could be. Irish, who is a researcher, worked on this with me, and Irish Malig. This is her helping to decipher kind of how things are right now and kind of how we imagine they could be better here in our Northwest. We're calling it a biotrust because that sounds better than a bank. Banks are scary and take our money right now, and we don't want to have that connotation. So we're saying biotrust. And right now, we feel that people don't really get to see the scientists doing the work. We feel often when you are asked to give that sample of cancerous tissue, you're asked at 7 a.m. in the morning, right before your actual surgery. When I talked to nurses about this, they said this was distressing for a lot of people. You know, what are you asking me? I have cancer. I could die, or I've been thinking about death. And you want what right now? And they're not necessarily sure what happens with that sample afterward. They may have to go online and do what turns out to be quite a rigorous search. None of this is optimal. The things on the right are representing things we would rather have happen, and we're exploring ways to make that happen in the Northwest. These are some of the specific kinds of questions we are asking, and we're asking everyone we can think of. I'm in charge of running focus groups right now with scientists, with people like yourselves sitting here in this room, and I'm in the middle of the project right now. There's a lot of qualitative methods going on, but it basically comes down to what I was saying before about looking someone in the eyes, having a cup of coffee, and figuring out what matters to each of you and how I can best tell you what's actually happening and how you can contribute to science or choose not to. Choose that you would rather keep concerns important and refrain from that, which is also worth respecting. Some of these come from Beal Associates, who are a research group working with us. This is what they've been doing. This is a word cloud. This is the before, how people are feeling. We've had a sample of about 150 people so far be asked questions like the ones you just saw. And 5 years from now, we hope at least, that people are a little more confident about going on. You probably know about the Henry Lax story, and that's a major source of concern for some people in the community. And we do not want to repeat that. We actively strive not to repeat anything at all like that. Instead, we want samples to be used in a way that respects the samples themselves and lets you know what's going on. So I took some of those concerns, and I'm developing this is website mock-up pages right here, you can see, to let you know what we're trying to do in the region. This is consent form option. This is one of the most important things we have, is the consent form is now full of really governmental-oriented language that nobody at all wants to read. And we're trying to fix that and help people understand. We're also helping scientists do something that's incredibly difficult for a lot of them. No offense, Josh, if it isn't for you, it doesn't seem to be. But that is communicate with other people and tell them what they are actually doing. It's not enough we're trying to say in our buyout trust. To remain in your lab, you have to make people care about what you're doing. And that means you have to tell good stories. But we all like good stories. You're much more likely, commercial research proves, to change your mind and to take action if a friend tells you, if someone you trust tells you, if you understand what's going on and have some sort of relationship. So it all comes down to building personal relationships, and that includes the scientists doing the basic primary research, as well as the people like me who stand in the divide, and the people like the clinicians who have to carry this out in their actual practice, like nurses, like Jason over here. This is another initiative we're starting called People Matter, and this is a little website my professor, Kelly Edwards, has put together, and this is a call for people to become invested in talking to each other, in forming more of these focus groups and forming more groups to talk about what the barriers might be to contributing to science and wanting to hear those stories and being able to find those stories, and what the benefits might be to it. Here you can see what the next thing might be. This is it's called Science Online, and it's an open science practice encouraging researchers to share more of the results. And what I would like to encourage you to do is to ask me any questions you have and think about crossing your own bridge to joining more people and really communicating and forming more relationships so we can all be in research and in learning together. Thank you for listening today.